how to provide a kind of broader perspective here on trust, because that's critical what we're doing with our companies and our businesses. We're really delighted here to have a representative from Edelman. Now, we've had Richard Edelman here in the past. We didn't really want him. We've heard from Richard a few times. We've had other leaders in the group. We really wanted the person who does the Trust Barometer. For now, a decade. It goes back 24 years, as we said last night, the year after CSP was founded. Businesses moved up in the trust. So we're really delighted here to have Tonia Ries from Edelman share. This is from the executive director of the Edelman Trust Barometer to share the latest results. Thank you. Thank you, Tonia.
Thank you, Darrell.
Slide you up there.
Good morning. So thank you for having me. I feel like the data I'm about to share with you really proves why everything that Sandy, Jackie, and Tyler just talked about are things that you need to write down, take home, and action on, right? Because this data really shows how much demand there is from your stakeholders, right? From your customers, from consumers, in helping us manage through progress and manage the impact of that progress and how important things like listening and engagement are to that process. So let's take a look at where we are. As Darrell said, the Trust Barometer, I'm sure most of you have probably heard about it. We measure trust in institutions, right? And the way we ask the question is, how much do you trust each institution to do what is right? And we don't tell people what is right. You know, we don't ask them, do you think they do this, this, or this? I mean, we do ask follow-up questions, right? But the basic trust measure is just, do you think they're doing what is right? Right? And so it is so relevant to those of you who are trying to demonstrate and show that your company knows how to do the right thing. But of course, in the world today, that's a highly complicated path to chart. 28 countries. This is a global study. It is one of the largest social sciences studies of its kind. We are nationally representative within each country by age, income, geography. We look at a number of measures. It is an online survey. So one thing to keep in mind is that in developing markets especially, it may be a little bit underrepresentative of people that are hard to reach online, right? There are still people in the world that are hard to reach online. It'll skew a little more urban, a little bit more affluent in those markets. Over the 24 years, it's just really a fascinating role to be looking at this data over time, right? And have so much tracking. And you really see these trends around trust that are so clear, and we're living the impact in the world today, right? And I can summarize it in sort of two broad themes. One is shifts in power, right? Shifts in power and influence. First, through social media and the rise of everybody had a phone and the internet in their pocket, right? Massive shift of authority and influence from experts to peers, right? So peer voices are now as influential as experts. There's also been a power shift between the institutions. For most of the history of the Trust Barometer, of the four main institutions we measure, NGOs, business, the media, and government, NGOs were the #1 most trusted institution. Today, and for the last 3 to 4 years, #1 most trusted is business, right? And that's a really interesting conversation to think about why that shift has happened. The other thing that is a long-term track is deepening of divisions, right? So just as we have access to more information and more people, we also are sorting ourselves into tribes, based on all kinds of things, right? Our values, our identities, our geographies. I think nationalism has been talked about on the stage this morning as well. And of course, we are all arguing about the truth, right? Liev mentioned misinformation, disinformation, just how noisy it is. All of this makes your jobs incredibly complicated. So the focus this year is really, we chose to focus on innovation because we just saw how much all of these forces were making it harder for us to talk about progress, right? To talk about how we're going to solve our problems. We're living in an age of AI. We're living through an energy transition, right? And yet we can't have that conversation without getting into political hot waters. You know, and here are the Dutch farmers. We all know about them this year. Okay, so let's take a look at some data. The trust index is the average trust in the 4 institutions in each country. If you have trust among 60% or higher, you're blue. We call you a trusting company. Less than half, you're red. You're in distrust, and then there's that middle neutral zone. What you'll notice if you look at that chart is that the blue zone is almost all developing countries. So in the developing market, trust is informed by the opportunity for economic growth, right? My life is going to be better in 5 years. I trust the institutions that I'm working with to get me there. In the developed markets, and we've over the years looked at other data and how does our data intersect with sort of macroeconomic trends, distrust is worsened by a sense of unfairness and inequality. Okay, and so we now have growth of trust in the developing world. We have declines, further declines in the developed world. The UK dropped to the bottom of the list this year. They've been declining steadily for the last 5-6 years. But you can see, Western Europe is almost exclusively in the red. The US is down there at just 46% trust. Germany below that, right? So all kinds of trust fractures happening in the developed world primarily. These are the institutions. We talked about trust to do what is right. There's a competence, can you get things done, element to that, right? Do you have ability? And there's an ethical element. Do you have the integrity, the purpose, the shared values, a vision for the future I believe in? Business is the only institution that is very clearly trusted with competence and purpose and ethics, right? And that ethical score is the one that has really put business over the top relative to NGOs, because in the last 4 years, the ethical score for business has increased by like 13 points. Okay, so something that business is doing is working, in spite of all the noise and the backlash and everything else we're seeing. 52 points more competent than government. So if you're finding that people are expecting business to do more, it's because we don't see anybody else who can get things done, right? NGOs are great, they're ethical, I believe they mean well, but they're not very competent, right? They need help. And boy, does government need help, and even the media needs help. So there's a lot of jobs for business to do. This is a tough one to show, right? We just have such suspicion of societal leaders right now. And the whole, don't trust the media, it's just, it has had an impact, okay? We think government leaders, journalists, and even business leaders are deliberately saying things that they know are untrue in order to mislead us. So the truth is a very hard thing to pin down right now. So it's not a surprise that we're really concerned, right? We have our personal economic fears, but the ones that are rising, right, the macro fears, societal fears, are just as high. I'm just as worried about climate change, hackers, my personal data privacy, as I am about job loss and inflation. And the biggest increases in the last year were things related to information and our ability to know what is true, right? Specifically, foreign misinformation. Attacks on our media designed to inflame our differences, right? People are really troubled. They don't know where the stuff is coming from, but they know it's bad. And as a result, they don't believe anything. Here we go. Scientists, yes, I trust what scientists say about things like innovation and new technologies, but I trust peer voices just as much. So the good news is people still believe in science, right? They still believe in expertise, but it's noisy out there. And they're also listening to other voices. And science is hard to communicate about in a way that is relatable to regular people. And guess what? Scientists sometimes have to update the facts and their findings. And now, wait a minute, you told me something different last year, and I don't really understand why it's changing, right? So are we doing a good job bringing people along to keep their faith in scientific recommendations as they evolve? But technical experts also trusted, not government leaders, not journalists. So the good news is industry sectors have a lot of trust, right? Across different sectors. The one exception is social media. Technology sector is having some trust problems in the US right now. But for the most part, sectors are highly trusted, but that does not necessarily grant you a license to just put new innovation out into the world without having to do the work of explaining it and bringing people along, right? And this trust in innovation has a direct impact on the acceptance of innovation. The most trusted innovation globally, green energy, a lot of green light, and a lot of people will say, I want more of this, right? That green bar is people saying, I am enthusiastic about the growing use of this technology in society, and I support companies, right, that are doing this. So much more acceptance for green energy than rejection. You've got AI and gene-based medicines, which includes mRNA vaccines and others in the examples that we gave, at a crossroads, right? People on both sides talking past each other, right? And then GMO foods, which is a great case study of an innovation failure. You know, no matter how many people we can feed with GMO, it's, you know, it's not gotten over the hill of acceptance, right? So there's a lot of challenges there. Okay, so we are twice as likely to think that innovation is not being well managed, right? So do I trust business to innovate and invent? Yes. But do I trust that you're really thoughtful about how you're introducing innovation into society? That you're really thinking about the impact of innovation on me and my family? Not sure about that. I don't trust government to regulate. And I'm really concerned that science is overly influenced by politics or money or funders or corporate funders, right? So I'm really concerned about how innovation is being managed, and the difference that makes on the acceptance of innovation is really stark, right? Far more likely, if I am a person who thinks that the institutions are not managing the implementation well, I'm much more resistant to AI, gene-based medicine, foods, you know, any kind of progress. Okay. This has a broader impact, though, right? Because not only are people then going to have a sense that, gee, the pace of change is too fast, and let's put on the brakes in a broader sense, and let's get out and protest and fight against this, I'm also going to be more likely to think that the system is biased and unfair, that capitalism maybe isn't the right way to go, and suddenly we start to see problems with the license for business to operate, right? So there's some real knock-on effects about mismanagement of innovation or not convincing people that we are thinking about the impact of the progress. So what do we do? What's the path forward, right? And I really, again, gee, I was blown away by the conversation on stage, you know, just in the previous panel even, by how many of the examples you guys gave are exactly what the data is telling us, right? So first, who should lead? Good news, scientists and technical experts, right? I want to see them front and center. I want to know that they have had a role in testing and vetting the innovation. In fact, if I have a high level of confidence that science has fully vetted the innovation, I am much more likely to be acceptant and to embrace the innovation than if I don't know that, right? So show me that you've really done the testing and the trial ballooning. But you got to give me a voice, right? Because I'm out there now, I'm doing my own research. I'm listening to people who are doing their own research, right? I have to feel like I am part of the process. Yeah, I'm going out there and I'm going to double check what the scientists are telling me, right? So make sure that when I am doing those online searches, that I'm finding trustworthy information, that I'm finding reliable information, that I'm hearing from quality, right? Help me figure out the difference between good and bad information. The most credible source, when we ask people, right, how many times do you have to hear a piece of information from this source before you believe it? Number one most believable, employers. Talk to your employees, right? Engage with them, do that roadshow, bring them along, because they then are going to be the credible voice that everyone else believes, right? And they're going to help their friends and family navigate the truth from the misinformation that they're finding online. Listen to my questions. hear me, right? Across every one of the institutions that we measured, when we said, what are the top 3 things that this institution can do to demonstrate that they can be trusted with implementing innovation, listening came up in the top 3 for all 4 institutions, right? For business, it's make it affordable, make it possible for give me access to the innovation. Tell me not just the good stuff, but also the bad stuff, right? Show me that you're keeping an eye on the potential consequences and the potential downside. Because if you don't talk about it, then I don't know you're paying attention to it and managing that risk, right? And too often, I think we tend to over-index on, hey, let's sell the benefits. Let's sell the upside, But make sure I know that you've also paid attention to the downsides, right? And then let me voice my concerns. Listen to me. Sounds so simple, hard to do at scale. Give me control over the impact on me and my family's lives, right? Give me a say, give me a voice, bring me into that conversation, and I will be far more likely to embrace the innovation in the end. And this, to us, was just an absolutely fascinating finding. In the last 9 years, right? So we asked this question in 2015, a different report, and we said, let's bring it back, see if anything's changed. A double-digit increase in literally every country where we have tracking in the desire for partnership between business and government, right? Business cannot do this on its own. We have to work with the other institutions. But what this says to me is that people are much more welcoming of business's voice in the conversation, right? They recognize that business has something to offer in the conversation around, the impact of technology, the understanding of technology. Government regulators can't keep up, right? We have to help them along. And part of what I think has been successful and part of what explains the increase in business's ethics score is that we have done a better job of engaging in these broader conversations, right? And demonstrating that we deserve and we've earned a seat at the table, if you will. And here's the evidence, right? Even in the US, with all of the noise and backlash, there's still been an 8-point rise in that period of time. For CEOs, I want to know that you are helping to manage change, not just in your company, but in society as a whole. Because your company and its work is part of what's creating a lot of change, right? You're changing jobs by bringing automation in. We need new skills, right? What do those jobs look like in the future? Are you making sure that when you're using technology that I'm interacting with, you're doing it in a way that is ethical? That you're, my concerns about hacking and data privacy, right? Business has a huge role in addressing those. What about the impact of automation, both on our jobs and how we interact with each other, right? Are CEOs managing those things? So these are the platforms that people do want to hear from CEOs on. Don't talk to me just about your company. Talk to me about how these things are going to, how society, give me that vision for the future, right? What is society going to look like in future? Because when I have that vision, when I have that clear understanding and that leadership from you, again, I'm going to be much more accepting and embracing of change, of innovation, and of progress. So 4 kind of big takeaways that we're leaving people with, right? The implementation is as important as the invention, right? It's not enough to just come up with new technologies, new solutions to problems. We have to think about how we're going to bring people along, explain the science, manage the impacts. Partnership is the key to everything, right? And I don't really need to spend too much time with the group in this room on that. But it's also about choosing what are the things you're going to do, and then what are the things you're going to talk about, right? And the things people really want to hear from are the things that business has the most standing on: jobs, economic growth, right? How is all this going to add up to a future that we can all be a part of? We all have a role in making science more accessible and better integrated in society, right? That is something that every institution can help with, and it's not just up to the scientists to solve this problem, right? They're trained to speak to their peers and defend their work to their peers. We have to help them translate it into everybody else's peer voices. and give me control, right? Give me a sense of control. We all know the world is crazy. It's changing far faster than any of us can keep up with. And so we're all looking for those small ways that we can have a sense of control, right? So how can you make it a world where everyone feels that they've carried a part of the load, you know, and been part of the answer as well. So hope that's helpful. Thank you for the time.
Thank you, Tonia.